Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever in the world you're joining us from for this, our sixth CJ Cinema Summit. My name is Patrick von Sahovsky, and I'm the editor of Celluloid Junkie, which, together with our partners Film Grail and The Big Picture, is bringing you this. Now, first of all, I'd like to thank my colleague Helen for stepping into my shoes last week. And I was going to suggest we do a poll on who you want to see back for this week, but I don't know if my ego could take it. But we are going to ask you questions, and we want you to put questions to us. When you do, please do it in the comments section in the top right corner here, rather than putting in the comments section there, so that we can see them and get to them afterwards. Also, please remember that we have a community forum, which is community.cjcinemasummit.com, where we update you throughout the week in between the webinars, and where you can also engage with us and ask further questions. If you have any comments, feedback, suggestions for future sessions, please email them to us at tips@celluloidjunkie.com. Now, we've got a very packed session, so I'm not going to rattle on too much, but I just want to say that today's focus is going to be on the issue of cinema advertisers and how cinema advertisers can help cinemas persuade audiences to come back to the movies when they reopen, which is going to be another one of our topics. In fact, this week there's been a lot of discussions about when cinemas might or might not reopen. We've heard October for China, we've heard 31st of July for Berlin, we've heard some US states going very early, and we don't know what we believe, but we will talk about it. However, when cinemas reopen, we know that there will be new procedures that will be put into place in order to make people feel safe to return to the cinemas. And there will be plenty of them. There will be things like no more buying tickets cash at the box office. Instead, you'll have to pre-book them using an app, maybe giving your name and details for any future contact tracing. You might have your temperature checked on the way into the cinema. Cinema shows and films will be staggered to avoid crowds in the auditorium and in the waiting area. There will be seat separation and distancing. You might have to pick up your popcorn from a machine with a QR code, as it's being done in Korea this week. You might even be asked to leave the auditorium row by row and numbers capped at 50 to avoid it. If it reminds of anything, it's probably the measures that have been put in place at airports after major international incidents. However, the good news is that these measures, most of them will not be permanent. They will eventually be lifted. So the good news is that you won't have to take off your shoes to get into a cinema. And best of all, at the end of it, we might even see a lot cleaner toilets in cinemas. So something good can still come of this cinema corona crisis. But now, I'd like to play our first video before we move to the global overview. And this video comes from Spain, which is one of the countries hardest hit by the coronavirus pandemic. And it's a message of hope, though. So if you could play the first video from Archeo Viejo.
I will, but before I do, let me just say I'm noticing in the chat section here that a lot of people are saying they have a black screen, which should not be the case. If you do, if you refresh your browser or come back into the session, it should actually pick up where the video and where we left off. So please, if you are seeing a black screen, do refresh your browser or re-enter, and you should see, well, Patrick in this case, or the video from Araceli. Here it is.
I'm not seeing a video, Sperling.
Yeah, neither am I.
Oh.
Okay, why don't you move on?
Let's go to the global overview then. And as we mentioned earlier, the big topic this week has been really when cinemas might reopen. And there was a news update from the Republican governor of Georgia, the US state, that they were going to lift restrictions this Monday coming week already. And then we had a bit of a counterblast, should I say, to that, with everything from a press release from the National Association of Theater Owners and certain cinema chains saying that they won't be reopening. So my question to you, Sperling, is this. Is the reopening of cinemas, at least in the US, going to become a red state versus a blue state issue?
Well, we don't want to politicize this pandemic. We shouldn't be politicizing, and I got that talking point from both Republicans and Democrats and the Tories and the Labor Party. So I don't. Yes, it's definitely going to be a bit of a red state, blue state, and even red county, blue county. You can already see here in California, Ventura wanting to open, Kern County wanting to open, some of the less populated areas wanting to open because they have 3 or 4 cases. In Georgia, the governor kind of got out ahead of everybody, including the president, who then yesterday Trump had to say, well, I don't necessarily agree with what Georgia's doing because the Center for Disease Control has released certain guidelines for how a state should reopen. Georgia hasn't met those guidelines yet. And the governor said, well, we're going to start opening massage parlors and tattoo parlors and restaurants and movie theaters and gyms. And everybody said, well, that's great. We're not going to, we're a gym. We're not going to open. We're a massage parlor. We're not going to open. So it was a little premature. And of course, NATO then had to say, not every cinema in Georgia or any municipality that is allowed to open will actually open. Why? Because if you are in Knoxville, Tennessee, where your headquarters are, and you are trying to open a theater in Georgia and only Georgia, well, that's a bit of a problem. If you are in Leawood, Kansas, where AMC is based, or New Orleans, where Southern Theaters is based, and you're trying to open theaters in various parts of the country, but you yourself are not open, that's a problem. Likewise, the supply chain is a bit of an issue. All of the supply, all of the product, all of the films come from California, which is, at least in Los Angeles County, closed until May 15th. So that's a bit of an issue. So you might be able to open, but where are you going to get content? I know Alamo Drafthouse is going to be opening slowly over the next couple of weeks. At least they're going to kind of begin to test the waters. But nobody wants to be the vector. Nobody wants to be the place where where another outbreak starts. And there's no discussion about what happens regarding liability. And so that's, to answer your question, it is a red state, blue state thing, but I think ultimately everybody's erring on the side of caution.
Mm. And of course, as you said, one of the factors deciding the reopening is going to be the availability of content. And at the moment, we don't have a major tentpole title from any studio before Warner Brothers' Tenet, which Jim Amos wrote about on Celluloid Junkie this week. A very good article. If you haven't read it, do head over to Celluloid Junkie and read that. Now, another piece of news that might have slipped people by because there wasn't much writing about it, but an email went out from Sony Electronics saying that they will not be manufacturing or selling any new projectors, as far as we understand. They will continue supporting the existing installed base of projectors, but it seems that, especially given the current circumstances, they don't see a future for themselves as a maker of digital cinema projectors, having pioneered the 4K before that. Now, my question to you, Sperling, and it's one for exhibitors with very long memories, is this a rerun of the SDDS digital audio situation with Sony well over a decade ago now?
Well, yes, possibly. I mean, basically, there were 3 different sound, digital surround sound suppliers: DTS, Dolby, and SDDS. SDDS decided to get out of the business, but they had sold a ton of product to AMC. Likewise, Sony again sold a ton of its projectors to AMC and I believe to Regal and others. And the question will be, well, what becomes of that product now? Who's going to service it? I believe Sony is going to maintain that equipment for some time, but they will not be selling new equipment to exhibitors. And so I guess it's going to be an all DLP world when it comes to cinema projectors.
Well, DLPs and LED screens as well. Obviously, we have Samsung. LG is making an entry into it. And as we will get to probably a bit later in this show, LED screens have been making an appearance on drive-in cinemas, especially in Germany, which we're going to hear about in a minute. Now, before we have the final talking point, do you want to give another stab at playing the video, Sperling? Can we see if we can make it work?
Nope,
that was the start video. So
yeah, sorry. Hey,
hey,
live.
Okay, live. There are gremlins here. Well, the last.
Come back to it in a moment. I'll see if I can get it up.
Okay. Now, the final thing I wanted to touch upon in the global overview is that we all know that the trade publications, along with other print media and even television, is suffering in the advertising drought that has followed the COVID-19 pandemic. And there's a particular crisis really at the moment in the Hollywood traded publications, perhaps more so spectacularly with the fallout at the Hollywood Reporter. And I wanted to give a plug to Sperling's podcast here, Showbiz Sandbox. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're talking about in this week's episode and what actually is going on behind the scenes in Hollywood?
Well, so for those who don't know, the Hollywood Reporter is owned by Valence Media, which is now MRC Media. And they have been losing money on the Hollywood Reporter, Billboard, Vibe, and a number of other publications. But really, it's not just the Hollywood Reporter. They should not be singled out. Every single publication, whether it's a trade publication, whether it's the New York Times, the Guardian, the Telegraph, Sydney Morning Herald, it doesn't matter if you are a print publication or even big, BBC, CNN, MSNBC, it does not matter. You are losing advertisers because right now, no brand wants to advertise against anything. Specifically because they don't necessarily know the tone. Some brands are beginning to figure out how to position themselves during this time period. But if you were to pick up any newspaper, you'd see mostly ads from Facebook and Google who have taken out ads specifically to support journalism and specifically to support those newspapers that they've kind of helped put out of business. But with THR, the Hollywood Reporter, they lost their executive editor, they lost their publisher, they had some pretty significant layoffs. A lot of trade publications are not doing well during this time period. And actually, I would say every trade publication isn't doing well. And that's, in a way, no fault of their own. There's nothing they could have done to prevent the businesses that have no money to advertise right now or don't need to advertise or don't need to support a trade publication from not advertising. So, and I know that that's going to be an issue that we speak to with our guests. On Showbiz Sandbox this week, we talked to Kelly McBride from the Poynter Institute, who is the public editor of National Public Radio here in the US, NPR. She's also one of the advisors and public editors of the Hollywood Reporter, helping them figure out their journalistic ethics, so to speak. And it's pretty much about the future of journalism and what journalism will look like once we get out of this. It effectively has advanced the future of journalism by about 5 to 10 years.
Well, this is obviously an issue that's close to our heart here at Celluloid Junkie and at the CJ Cinema Summit. So, but that concludes the global overview for now. And now we're going to move on to the next section. And we do that with a slight commercial break. Sperling, let's see if you're able to play this video. And if not, I will do it from my end.
Okay, hold on a moment.
And that is, of course, the iconic intro, known as Asteroids for Pearl and Dean, which is here signified for our first two guests to talk about cinema advertising. So we've got Catherine Jacobs, CEO of Pearl and Dean, and we've got Stefan Kulob from Verbe Weischer. So thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. We're going to do two segments today, one with our European colleagues, and then we're going to go over to North America to talk to Screen Vision and MCM. But we're going to start off with you two. And Stefan, if I could begin with you. First of all, I know that you've been very busy lately, not just one, but two initiatives, the hashtag Hilf dein Kino and also with drive-in cinemas. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. So hi to everyone. My name is Stefan, and as you might recognize, it's not Stephen. So my English is not natural spoken. I'm not Patrick, who's able to speak fluently German and fluently English. So sorry for that if I missed the right word. Yes, we're facing the same situation as every one of us. So our cinemas in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland are closed. And we faced the situation that we're a sales house and we had nothing to sell. And then there was a phone call on a Sunday evening, which reached me and he said, okay, I have an idea. So why don't we show in the internet advertising we would have shown on the silver screen to our guys and to our customers? And then first, this was just a crazy idea, and we said, okay, are we able to do that? And then we thought a little about that, but we had so much support by our customers and by our cinema goers. We said, okay, let's try it out. And we made it within 5 days. So Friday we were online, and that is Hilf-Dein-Kino.de. Everyone can go there, and it's valid for Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. So you just click on your cinema, which is your personal favorite cinema you want to support. And then we start with the advertising show precisely of the cinema which we would have shown if we were sitting in the great auditorium. And yes, beside that, you're able to make a donate button. And we thought, okay, this is an idea. Let's see what happens. And then we were overwhelmed. So we had a large social media reaction. It was picked up by numerous influencers. And it was a lot of people talking to us. We were in the radios, we were in the television. And then today we had more than 4 million views. So people going into the internet, clicking on their favorite cinema and watching ads just to support their cinema. If anyone would have said that to me, this could happen in my life, I would say, no, it's not going to happen. But it happened, and it was great. And it's a great initiative. And we're very, very proud of that. And if anyone of you guys wants to know how that works, just write me an email. We can show it to you. It's less complicated than we thought in the first moment. And we gain money over that. We gain money for the advertisers on the advertising scene, and we gain money for our cinemas. So that was our first initiative, which really came out of an idea and worked perfectly in the market. And the second thing is something in Germany happening. I don't know whether it happens anywhere else in the world too. So a sector of our business, which was more or less dead, just comes back in a way we didn't expect. So today we have 20 car cinemas in Germany, 20 car cinemas. We're not America, we're Germany. We have 20 car cinemas. We have another 20 car cinemas we're about to open. I found with a good friend of mine in Düsseldorf yesterday, I said, okay, Stefan, I'd like to go to one of these car cinema, and I wasn't able to because it's sold out. I said, what? Yeah, so our car cinemas in Germany are sold out. So there's a little business for us as a sales house left. So now we sell advertising on the silver screen in car cinemas, and we're quite overwhelmed by that. It gives us a little bit of hope. I think if we think carefully about that, we have a difficult situation with this pandemic. But people who are able to leave their home and getting entertained and driving anywhere, they do it, and they will do it even after Corona. And if you know that within these car cinemas, I asked which film was running, and he said Manta Manta. So for everyone who's not familiar with German films, this one is out of the 80s, and it's about a car. Of course, it's about a car. We're in Germany, but people are going there to see a film out of the 80s and to be entertained. And I'm not so afraid after the reopening that people come back to our cinemas and enjoy time. And after social distancing, they go to social interaction. I'm keen on that.
That's great news, and hopefully this will lead to the return of car cinemas. It is a great tradition. I see an interesting comment from Richard Gromfors. They're saying they have one in Sweden, but social distancing means they cap the numbers at 50. That's 50 people, not 50 cars. So we'll see, maybe we have to rethink that. Now, before we go to the very lovely Catherine Jacobs, we're going to have one last try at playing the video of Archeo, because it's a great video and I do want you to see it. So fingers crossed, can we make it work?
everyone. My name is Araceli Baello, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Volfony 3D and part of the International Executive Committee of Women in Exhibition. Hello, ladies. I really hope everyone watching is okay and safe, as I suppose the majority of us are right now locked down, so all of my best wishes to everyone on these crazy moments. I've been asked to send you my opinion or my vision about how do I believe that the cinemas will remain the places of excellence for watching the films. The answer, even though it seems unclear or difficult right now, it's very easy for me. It's been more or less over a month that we've been all confined without being able to move from our houses, without being able to socialize. Parents haven't been able to take their kids anywhere. Kids who, by the way, have been one of the biggest victims of this lockdown. So people have been devouring contents in Netflix, consuming more streaming services than ever, day after day, and will be in the need to change and escape as soon as possible. We already saw in the past that what we thought was our enemy, the streaming services, were indeed our friend, as it was proven that the biggest streaming services users were also the ones who ended going more to the movies. This is also, for example, my case, so this time there will be no difference. People will be in the need of new contents and of socializing and feeling the magic of the big screens again. And of course, taking the kids outside. So I've been also doing my own research to people not linked with this industry, and the answer is always the same. The magic of the big screen cannot be replaced by a home TV. The popcorn smell, the evolving sound, the PLF screens, all of the bright colors with all of these new technologies are part of the experience. Also, we're in our houses thinking about how can we do it to reboot this industry once back. I'm sure that the best ideas will come out of all of this, as also a new way to work and think. Let's face this crisis as a new opportunity for everyone to cooperate and to work together. Talk with your integrators, talk to your suppliers, to see how we can all help each other, to see how we can all work together. It's a challenge, of course, but technology innovation doesn't stop, and we have the chance to come up with new things to impress the viewers. Measures, of course, will have to be taken. We have the precedent of countries like China ahead of this crisis in order to guide us and see the reaction of people. So we need to get ready and adapt for when cinemas will be able to open again. Let's remain positive, as we have to believe in our good work during the past years, on these loyal customers and all of these new ones which will be seeking for new experiences after months of being confined. The market is going to recover, and we will be back stronger than ever, and we will all work together for the same purpose. I wish all of you the best. I send you my warmest regards from Spain, and please stay safe. Cinemas will be back. Movies together.
Well, I'm glad we managed to get that one to work. But now I want to hear from the lovely Catherine Jacobs. We've been working together for many, many years, actually, through SAWA, the Screen Advertising World Association, who I want to get a shout out for having done so much work and really getting to know all the amazing work that you've done over the years. And you haven't stopped just because the screens have gone dark. So, Catherine, over to you. Tell us a little bit about what you've been working on lately.
Well, picking up on the theme of your previous speaker, it's all been about collaboration. So we've been working with the UKCA, headed up by the lovely Phil Clapp, and that's our cinema exhibitor body here in the UK, as well as other partners as well. So Wide Eye Media, my sister company in Ireland. Hello, Owen. And we've been working with the UKCA to try and find a way that brands can help bring people back into the cinema. The UKCA already does really great work with Compare the Market in terms of a ticket offering. So we're trying to find ways, together with Phil and his team and the team at Cinema First, to find a way to use the power of brands to reinforce the power of cinema and get people to come back. And one of the encouraging things that we found from media agencies is the proactivity we're finding talking to them. So big agency groups like WPP and Omnicom turning around having proactive cinema teams trying to find ways to get their clients back into cinema when cinema's open, and being really mindful of the fact that, yeah, it'll be a slow opening because of social distancing, but the power of the cinema is still there, the role it can play in building brands and in kind of imparting emotion, you know, messages with deep resonance in a way that social media can't. And I think that's been the really interesting thing, actually, is the number of reach outs that we've had from our brand partners, not only media agency partners, but, you know, we've had messages from clients at Samsung and Amazon and the car brands, everyone just saying, we can't wait until you're back. Tell us how we can do it. And it's been pretty much a journey of doing that. And of course, it's rather difficult because we don't have definitive timelines. So what we've done is we've tried to keep cinema in front of clients. So we've turned the hashtag WFH, work from home, into Why Film Helps. So we're running film quizzes. We're getting people to reproduce classic film things in their homes. So we had someone who dressed up as Forrest Gump at a bus stop, which is slightly disturbing, and proves that people have too much time on their hands. And we had someone else who did the head scene in Seven, you know, at the bottom of a box.
Oh, God, yeah.
I'm not sure what that says about our advertising community, but, you know, it was fun. So I think that's been the really great thing about talking to our cinemas. And it is a bit of a kind of, you know, cinemas of the world unite and take over, because I think there's going to be an appetite there. Kantar have said that it's the second most anticipated activity, aside from people getting their hair cut, when we come out.
Well, Catherine, your hair is looking great, but your background's even more amazing. We're having so many comments from it on the side here, so I think you want considerable work for that. Whatever it is you are. But no, it's really encouraging, and it ties in with all this anecdotal evidence that we're hearing, everything from the drive-ins to, you know, people buying popcorn on the curbside, and the fact that we've had 4 million views on this Help Your Cinema in Germany. Very, very encouraging. So the appetite's there, but also very, very encouraging to hear from you that the brands are still behind this, and they believe in the power of the big screen more so than ever when they reopen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting fact that the WARC, which is the Worldwide Advertising Research Council, predicted cinema to be the fastest growing medium, together with digital, this year. And sadly, the virus has put a slight kink in that. But I think our relevance and our resonance is playing more and more of a part. It is the last kind of proper shared group activity. And people value that. In an age of personalization, being with other people, which I think this period of time has shown us, being with other people is integral. We are kind of pack animals, and we love being with other people.
Yeah, good message. Stefan, if I could go back to you for a second, could you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing and hearing in Germany, and what the message is there that's going out or will go out to audiences and cinemas?
Yeah, let's tell a story of a meeting with the biggest media agency 2 weeks ago. And as everyone knows, the advertising business now is on a downturn everywhere. And I was expecting to have a large discussion about rebates and giving money back. And I was overwhelmed by their understanding that they say, look, we understand that you have a difficult situation. How can we help? That was the first time in my life in advertising business that a big media agencies offered me money and didn't want to have money from us in form of rebates. So I was really overwhelmed. So the support is great out of the business, out of the media business, and our clients and the customers. We have then discussed with them a lot of things. How can you help? And there was one initiative which was really great for us, and said, okay, what about if we do the way that we can show the ads in June, and we pay, but you show them by the end of the year. So there are customers in Germany who are willing to pay money to our sector just to give help to cinemas and to be sure that after this crisis, we'll be back in a strong position. And it's the same, Catherine told 6 weeks ago, we were growing at the double digit, and we were flying above the market because cinemas was seen as the fastest growing media solution for moving pictures, not only in Britain, but also in other countries. And I heard that from a lot of people. And advertisers are interested in that solution, and they are willing to support. The idea buy now, show later We sold that, which was the first time in my life. So every crisis brings opportunities, and that is one of the opportunities. We have a lot of initiatives together with market partners. How do we come back as soon as we get an information that we're allowed to come back? I like to mention that I really would like to be in the States right now, because I learned that in the States, first the cinemas will open and then the schools. In good old Europe, first the schools open and then afterwards the cinemas open. I think we have to work on our worldview. Might be that you in the States are in front of us. That's a nice story about that.
We're going to hear from our colleagues in the US next after you, but I believe we have some questions actually come in from the audiences for both yourself and Catherine. So Sperling, can you throw up the questions?
Here's one from Stefan, for Stefan, from Tristan. Are people just clicking and seeing the playlists, or are they also donating on the website that you were mentioning?
We started just with viewing, and we have 4 million views, and then we added a donate button because we had phone calls from customers. Okay, if I want to let the money directly flow, we installed a donate button. Today we have more than 30,000 euros just by donation. So really, people click on their cinema and say, I want to give money to this specific cinema, and that's my amount. And there are serious amounts in there, with more than 20 euros, 100 euros, and something like that. And they use it.
Another one comes from Marco Virasinga from Trailer Vote. He's I guess talking about the fact that you at the drive-ins or the car cinemas, you were showing ads, and you wanted to know, were you also showing trailers for those, in front of those ads or as a part of those ads? I would imagine my question would be, if so, what trailers do you show? Because you don't know what the release schedule is going to be.
We do both. We show trailers and ads. Of course, we prefer showing ads, because in our understanding as a sales house, ads are more important than trailers, but that's a specific understanding of business. But then we had two exhibitors who recognized that side and say, here are our trailers, we give them to you, please show them. And now we show a mixture, so that you really have the idea of sitting in a cinema and seeing trailers and ads in a mixture, which is giving you a good feeling.
Super. Well, we're unfortunately going to have to move on to our next set of panelists, but comments and questions can keep going in the community section in between these sections. One question which did flash up in the comments section was, Catherine, whether your masks were N95 or FPP2 compliant.
Both.
Both.
The mixture.
There's definitely masks going to be going on there, so.
I'd like to have the mask thing. Can you show the mask?
Oh, so, Stefan, I'll show you anything, as you well know.
Ah, yes. Stefan has also brought a mask.
You're looking like that in future. So we had a long phone call with Thailand last week. And can you show the picture? So we will start producing masks. Look like that. So that's our Marvel and hero mask. So a good idea. A customer said, "Can I have some masks? Can I produce masks?" And we said, "Yes, of course."
That's a great branding opportunity. Listen,
I would expect that the lawsuit comes from Marvel at any moment now.
Anyway, we have to move on to our next panelist. So, any final comments or questions from you, Catherine or Stefan?
No.
Yes, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation. Stay healthy all over the world. Stay healthy. Look after your family, and don't forget, this is more important than anything else.
Yeah. So we're now going to have
everyone.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you both. Now we're going to have another video clip during which Stefan and Catherine exit our virtual stage, and we get 2 new guests on there. So Sperling, if we could play the video, and thank you very much again, Stefan. And Catherine, of course. And we're trying to queue up the video.
Hi, my name is Omer Maqsood. I'm a chief projectionist and a duty manager here, and have been working here for the last 15 years. My favorite film of all time is the original Lion King, and I love this scene.
I've been running from it for so long. Ow! Jeez, what was that for?
It doesn't matter. It's in the past.
It would be our nachos with cheese. They're very fresh, and the cheese sauce especially, they're very mouth-watering and delicious. Very nice. My most anticipated movie of 2020 will be Top Gun Maverick, and I cannot wait to see that movie in iCinema.
I have everything I need to have you court-martialed and dishonorably discharged.
The end is inevitable, Maverick.
What are you gonna do?
Here they go! Look at the air! Look at the air!
My favorite film will be one second. My favorite film all the time, and I love absolutely Tom Cruise.
I love you.
And I cannot see. I cannot wait to see. Seriously.
I love that video for some reason. I don't know why I love that video so much. It's like an ad, which is actually a good segue to bring in the president of NCM, Cliff Marks, as well as the chief revenue officer of Screen Vision Media, Katie Loria. And I guess really, well, why don't we start with Katie, since you're there right now. What is Screen Vision Media doing right now? Are you talking to clients? Are you talking to advertisers? Are you talking to the exhibitors? How are you guys doing?
Well, yeah, thank you for asking. First, let me say good morning, afternoon, and evening to everybody out there. It's great to be invited to join the forum today. You know, what we're doing, and not dissimilar to what Catherine shared, is just getting to all of our partners as frequently as we can to help them through this hiatus. So we're very committed to being transparent and keeping the lines of communication open, and just making sure that they know as much as we do about the situation and when it will change. And I would say on the communication front, it's very much a two-way street. So we're very committed to understanding what their plights are as well, because of course, as mentioned, it's tough out there for advertisers right now too. It's not a situation that's just happening to us, but really virtually across all categories, brands are struggling to figure out how to navigate this time with, you know, what message and when. So we're working closely with all of our partners, and as it relates specifically to our own business, what we're largely doing is helping them shift. So if they had planned to run on screen with us in these months that we're in now, we've shifted those schedules a little bit further down the road when we hope to be back on screen in third quarter.
And Cliff, what about over at NCM? What are things? How are things going? Are you talking to clients? What are they telling you?
You know, what we've been most surprised with is how cooperative our clients have been. I really believe most of our clients want to see the cinema medium survive. They want to see us prosper. And with the exception of very few situations, we've seen most of our money be re-expressed to later in the year. So I feel really good that we've all done a good job of building real relationships, not just deals, but relationships, because this would be a real easy time for clients to abandon us and take our money and put it elsewhere. And for the most part, not that we haven't had to cancel some deals, because we have, but for the most part, I think we're very satisfied that our clients have stayed with us and supported us.
Well, and I guess we do have a couple of questions. Well, here's one, Katie, for you. What kind of, and this is, I guess, a question from Corey, and I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Tocini. What kind of response are you getting from agencies regarding coming back on screen post-COVID-19? And that's a question, I guess, that could also be asked of Cliff as well. Are brands being supportive? And in fact, much like Facebook, much like Google, could they could brands actually go out and say, look, we are specifically supporting cinema. This commercial is here to support cinema. Could they run pro-cinema campaigns?
But yeah, they certainly could. And hi, Corey. The answer, I think, is, as Cliff said, our national advertisers have stuck with this. We are shifting campaigns to later in the year. On the topic of local specifically, what we've done very successfully is just put folks on hiatus. So our local queue is ready to go, and as theaters reopen, those ads will come right back to screen. So again, done a good job, I think, working with partners, and it is very true that our brands are largely supportive and rooting for us, and ready to come back when we are. So the hedge on that is just also that the advertising climate in general, and this is not, of course, specific to cinema, will be compromised as we come out of this, as we come out of COVID, and deal with what a recession marketplace might look like. But as it relates to cinema, they are there and they're ready to be back on screen, and I think they're missing us.
Well, Cliff, here's a question from Carlos. It's somewhat similar, but he wants to know, and he's from Reading International, what type of ads would a theater place to make the consumer feel confident to go back into their theater? I mean, I guess that's not a pre-show ad per se.
No, listen, I think if you look at what happened on television, I actually sat through a meeting yesterday with some colleagues from television, and I learned that there are 255 ads that have been created. The creative has been altered specifically for television. 255 brands in 2 weeks have got their creative altered. I would think, especially if a brand were to collaborate with Screen Vision or NCM in the US, that we'd be able to actually create an ad that actually makes it feel movies, makes it feel Hollywood, and also says, welcome back to the movies. So I would look forward, to a brand challenging Katie and I to come up with an idea. And what I learned yesterday is a lot of the TV networks in the US are actually doing the creative because they're getting the ads. They have their own in-house media teams and they get them turned around so quickly. So I'm not exactly sure what the creative would be, but I know it can be done. There's no more powerful product than the movie product. I wanted to jump in on one thing that Katie said before about the local ad business, because, I think Katie and I would be aligned that I didn't get the turn off your cell phone.
It's an advertiser calling right now.
Yeah,
they want in.
Yeah. I hate walking from business, but I'll do it. The one thing that we're learning is the national advertisers, they've been shifting with us. The local ones are a little scarier, right? Because you say, oh my God, are these guys going to be in business? Are they going to be around? I'll tell you one thing, and this is probably true around the world. When we look at our local business, our top 3 categories are government and education and hospitals and things like that are actually in pretty good shape. I'm a lot more comfortable that the local business will come back stronger than anybody would have thought, because while some categories obviously who've been shut down and hurting are going to be soft, but some categories are actually going to come back pretty strong. So I think as you all think about your local businesses, you should think about what categories are actually healthy. There's more online education than ever before. There's more hospitals and medical, advertising than ever before. Those industries are strong and prosperous. So don't look at it as half full. There's a half empty side. Don't look at it as half empty. There's a half full side, because plenty of brands locally are still going to spend.
Now, I've got a question for both of you, Cliff and Katie, which is, we talked earlier to our friends Catherine and Stefan about the kind of latent pent-up audience demand to go back into the cinema. Now, is this something that you've been picking up on? I mean, we're seeing it anecdotally in the popularity of drive-ins and people buying curbside popcorn. What's your feeling?
Yeah, I'll take a swing at that first. We talk to, moviegoers all the time. We've got our own, in-house moviegoer panel, and I'm sure Cliff would speak to this as well, but the pent-up demand is real. I mean, there's absolutely a desire to get back out of there. So as recently as last week, when we talked to our panel, 63% of that group would go back to the movies tomorrow if they could. So they're ready to get back to cinemas. And additionally, 84% say they don't care what's playing. So they wouldn't necessarily wait for a big new release. They just want to get back to that environment. So I think lots of evidence to support the pent up demand.
What about you, Cliff?
So I'm going to key you, Sperling, to put up a slide that I sent you last night. Hopefully you received it. Did you receive it?
Yes, I did, and it is coming up at the moment.
So I'll echo exactly what Katie said. We have a survey called Behind the Screens, which is run by our own research group. And it's real interesting. Now, the slide you're looking at now was done 4 weeks ago. Okay, so really important to point out that this was done March 20th, the last week of March. Of course, that was at the height of the crisis. We're in market right now doing it again, so we'll have something to compare this to. But when we asked our customers, and this is a panel of 5,000, moviegoers who have opted into our panel, when we ask about returning, you could see that in the top two boxes, would return immediately or would return as soon as the government says it's safe to return. 73%, 66% of the customers said they would. But when you look at the younger demos, when you look at the 18 to 34 demo, it jumps to 73%. So I think we should all feel optimistic that people will return, some immediately, but some as a phase-in. And our data shows that there's somewhere between a 2 and a 3 month phase-in as to when most people would feel comfortable returning. But as you can see, 42% of 18 to 34-year-olds said that they'd return immediately. So, there's some cause for optimism there.
I'd say that's considerable cause for optimism. I mean, those are great numbers, and especially seeing the key young demographic, which we know that both Hollywood and the brands love. So thank you very much for sharing those numbers, Cliff. And we hope to return to this subject again in the future, because it is a very important part of the equation in reopening cinemas. Now, Sperling, I don't know, do we have any more final questions maybe from the audience?
Well, I guess one question that I know people, look, everybody's concerned about product. Everybody wants to know about product. And I know for cinema advertising, advertisers often say, well, I want to buy an ad in front of Top Gun, or I want to buy an ad in front of Star Wars. How are you dealing with the fact that I guess, maybe you do know more than we do, but you may not know what the release schedule is going to be, Cliff. How are you going to deal with that?
Well, we have a big old chart, and we're charting every film where it moves, and we're doing our best to communicate that with our customers. It's a fluid situation. It's going to keep changing. And frankly, until we can get theaters open up, en masse in the US, especially in New York and LA, I'd personally be surprised if the studios release these big films without the top 3, top 5 markets being open. So, we're just going to do what our customers expect, and that's be transparent, show them what we have, and tell them what we have. I would tell you, we sell very few film-specific deals. At NCM, we sell very few film-specific deals. So I'm not as concerned about somebody just following Top Gun or just following, a certain film. But I think what we should all do is just be transparent and share what we know with our customers, and ask them. And I don't think we should be shy to ask them to support our business, to please stay with us, because we're all in a position, no matter where you are around the world, we're still a secondary or tertiary medium. It would be easy for some brands to just turn around and take that money and put it on TV. We need to ask them to support us, because we're a great medium. We really, really work for them. Let's not be shy in asking them to stay with us.
Well, and a number of questions have been coming in, and I guess, Katie, feel free to take this one. And I think this is true of television, of print journalism as well, which is the fact that, look, with 50% of patrons is the fact that, lower attendance might affect maybe ad rates. And I guess, Katie, why don't you feel free to jump in on that with the attendance question, because that is one question that continuously comes up when it comes to screen advertising.
Sure. And so, we continue to talk a lot about that and look at that. But we take that into consideration with our admissions and our projections. So it is that metric is built into a campaign. So when we present a proposal to an advertiser, we're already helping them through that conversation. So, but I guess I would almost flip it back and say, you know, to exhibition, if there are a couple things that that we love help with, is just as much as you can share as you know it, because of course things are changing daily, about what that will look like, and then how will we reopen our theaters. The social distancing is obviously a very important topic, but we also know that instead of, you know, a movie showing on one auditorium, it'll show on 2 or 3 in order to get back to that original capacity or even exceed it. So anything along those lines about how the theaters themselves are thinking about helping the moviegoer through that re-entry, that confidence, is important information for us to share back with the brands.
Well, and as we say goodbye here, that last question came from Eric Engel. This next question comes from, and by the way, as I go to each of you, if there is something you want to let the attendees know, and hopefully they can kind of socialize whatever message you're trying to get out there with the industry at large, feel free to add that to your answer to this question. This next question comes from Walid Saif, and he wants to know, how would you argue with clients, I would assume advertisers, who are not willing to discuss cinema campaigns for the third quarter or the fourth quarter because they're not sure how cinemas will perform or whether they'll be open? Katie?
Well, we try not to argue. But I think that's, you know, I think it's a great question. And it just, for me, goes back to, you know, that staying visible and staying in front of them and reminding advertisers of our specific value proposition. So we bring them an audience, and Cliff talked about sort of the reliance on the slate being important, but also not being the only factor is what is the specific movie for that weekend, because we're really selling them the value of a very hard to reach audience. We've got millennials, they are cord cutters, they are hard to find anywhere else. And we've got them in a pretty special environment with amazing content. And we know that they are seeking premium video. So, you know, I think my answer to that is it's our job to just keep telling them that story, addressing their questions, and being as transparent as we can with answers as we have them, so that there isn't a nervousness about returning to cinema.
What about you, Cliff?
Well, listen, I think Katie nailed it. I think she's right on. But there's one more thing, is we have a great track record. And I think what we got to say to clients is, look at our track record. Look at how people love the movies. Look at what we've done over the years. You got to believe we'll be back. By the way, if you want to look at the social distancing angle, would you rather be the movies, or would you rather be sporting events where people are literally sitting all over each other? At least we have the ability, our exhibitors have the ability to create social distancing by specific seating patterns. I think that's going to be very important. And I think that's going to get people's confidence. But one of the things that we've been talking about a lot at NCM, and I'm talking to my board about, is the onus is on us to regain the buyer's confidence by showing them that people are going to come back to the movies, and by the studios leaving their first tier product on the big screen. So if we can show that our customers that, you know, Tenet and Top Gun and Wonder Woman and all this great content remains on our screen, that should give a vote of confidence, because we have hands down the best content in the world. And if we can get them comfortable with the reseating patterns that I think our exhibitors will do a very good job at managing, then the onus is on us. You know, the proof is in the pudding. But you know, one word to the wise, I can tell you that what we're doing, and I would suggest everybody think about this. Now's the time to be thinking about the long term. Now is the time to be selling the big screen and the power of the big screen and the success of the big screen over the years. Still sell the content. We're about the content, the content, the content. And now I think is a time to be thinking about ideas to be bringing to brands for our reemergence. Because we're sitting here in April, at least in the US, common thought is we'll be open somewhere between early to mid-July. So now's the time to be thinking. Now's not the time to be, you know, when no one's on vacation. If you hadn't noticed, your home is not a vacation spot. Now's the time to be thinking, and thinking harder, and thinking wiser. Because if we don't think now, we won't be ready to come back in July.
Well, Katie Loria from Screen Vision Media and Cliff Marks from NCM, National Cinema Media. I want to thank both of you for taking the time to join us and to kind of tell us what's going on in the cinema advertising world, at least here in North America. And I know that there are several questions that are kind of unrelated to cinema advertising that are in the question section, and we do try to answer those questions, especially if they're in the community.cjcinemasummit.com. If you place those questions in the community section, we have been trying throughout the week to answer them. Oliver Plash from Cineonic, he asked a question about drive-ins last week, placed it in the community section. We tried to begin to answer it this week. So similarly, if you place those questions there that we couldn't get to during our hour here, then we will try and get to them not only in the community section, but again, back here on the summit.
All right. Well, an extra thank you from me to Kathy and Cliff. I know that you are both coming to us today from New York, so stay well and stay safe. Before we end, we have one more thing for you, an extra special treat. Now, those of you who joined us last week know that I ventured into an actual cinema. And this week, we've got an exclusive interview with the head of the cinema chain, Svenska Bio, which, by virtue of being the last cinema chain open in Europe, has become Europe's biggest. Peter Fornstam was given the Unique Achievement Award at Cine Europe last summer in 2019. He's also the head of the Swedish Exhibitors Association. And my colleague, Karen Krasanovic, interviewed him exclusively for the CJ Cinema Summit, but you can also read her interview with Peter Fornstam, where he goes into more depth on celluloidjunkie.com. So we're going to cut to the video of her talking to Peter in a minute. Just be aware, he was interviewed from a mountaintop in Sweden. The connection wasn't always the best, but what he has to say is definitely worth hearing. So if we could cut to the video now.
And then should we mention, are we coming back to you after this, or we'll be back? Okay.
For final words.
Okay.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us at Celluloid Junkie. Now, I wanted to ask you, how does it feel to be Europe's largest cinema operator by box office right now?
You know, in one way, I guess I should be proud, but I feel sad. It's sort of a consequence that everyone else is shut down. I'd rather have everyone else operating and not be in that position. But listen, bearing in mind the circumstances, I'm happy that we kept the doors so open for such a long time.
Now, what precautions are you taking, and what's been the response from staff and from customers?
Well, it's interesting because since the other major operator, Filmstaden, shut down and we decided to stay open, we were expecting that people would criticize us for that. And it's been the opposite. Everyone has been very supportive, very happy. My staff, I spoke to one of my managers the other day who said, I'm so proud to work at Svenska Bio, who goes their own way. There's been only support of us staying open, and the precautions, we made sure the theaters are clean. We have 50% of the capacity and free seating, and we have made sure that everyone knows that they should wash their hands, keep a distance, and sanitizers are available for staff and audience.
And you've had a great response from customers as well.
Yeah. Yes. They're very happy that something in society stays the same. And also what we did was that we offered audience to be able to buy their own screening, either to see a movie with their friends or to play a video game. And I checked yesterday, we have had 120 of those rentals around the theaters where people have rent their own screening room. I felt was, not a money make, but we keep the doors open. We do something for our audience, and our staff feels very proud to be busy and do something.
Now, can you tell us a bit about the other initiatives that you've launched? To tell us more about the auditorium rental and the gaming. It's much different from what other cinemas have been doing. For example, I watch alone is one of the taglines. But what you're doing is really quite innovative.
Well, it was really one of our managers in the city of Alingsås of Sweden, Richard, who came up with the idea, and we said, let's try it. And it spread by social media. We didn't do any advertising or anything like that. And certain markets worked very well, especially in two markets where we have restaurants adjacent or part of the theater where people have been having a meal and catching a movie. And it's worked very well. Listen, it's once again, this does not replace the normal operations of the theaters. I mean, let's just face it. But it's something to do in this downtime to show that the theaters is part of the society. That this is sort of a way to keep things on a very low level going until we can get back into the swing of things.
Because you were saying about the mental health aspect of actually getting out, and
yeah.
you see no preference as far as film choice, for example?
I tell you what the interesting thing is. I think people have decided to go to the movies, rent a screen. That has been their first choice. This movie has been their second choice. It's like going to a restaurant, and when you get to the restaurant, you decide what to eat. Yeah. The movie has been fun enough secondary. It's the social experience of actually doing something, catching a movie, playing a video game, being together. People miss that.
Now,
you know, it's interesting. I really feel this is encouraging for our business going forward.
Absolutely, and I completely agree. Again, I was looking at your social media feed, and it's very informative. But the responses of people that miss the cinema, and this gives them an opportunity, at least to have what's so important to them. It pivots in their life. You're also the head of the Swedish Cinema Association, and I wanted to ask you what kind of work you're doing in that capacity, and what message you're sending out to your colleagues around the world.
Well, listen, my first and foremost is to keep the spirits and the moral open up there for the smaller exhibitors who are really sort of struggling, who doesn't have sort of a great balance sheet or deep resources. So when this happened, we went into discussions with the culture department and with the Swedish Film Institute, what they could do in the short term and the long term. And a couple of things have happened in the short term and the long term. So we have moved the needle to assist them. And do you want me to tell you what we have achieved?
If you'd like to, or I could ask you about the nature or the cultural nature of Swedes, which I find very interesting. You can tell us. Tell us what you've done.
Well, we have something. We have something called the Cinema 10, which basically means that you get 10 Swedish crowns per admission on natural movies or art movies selected by the Swedish Film Institute. And those money are normally due in June. And we went to the Swedish Film Institute, and they were able to not only pay us the money in April rather than June, but also double it, so it became 20 crowns, which is like $2, equivalent of $2 for the admissions. So those money were speeded up and added on and received very quickly, and we want to thank the Swedish Film Institute for doing that with such a speed. Secondly, the state of Sweden created a rental program so you could go back to your landlords and ask for a break. And so if you pay 50% of your rent, the state would give the landlord another 25% of the missing rent. So they end up taking a haircut of 25%. And we were able to get the cinemas coded into that program. And
achievement.
Yeah. So so those are done. And thirdly, we've also asked the Swedish Film Institute to be supportive of the smallest distributors, because for us it's important as an industry that they will survive. And they are helping them out with support. I don't know the details of that support program, but they said we'll do our best to take care of them, which I think is a very good spirit. And now what we're working on is the Minister of Culture has got 500 million Swedish crowns, equal to $50 million, to help out the various culture industry. And my job is to try to get a piece of that for the theater, for the movie industry, for the exhibition industry. And I hope, today's Tuesday, I hope by Friday we will know how that's it, how much money will get allocated to us. And we have also come up with a structure how we should think that they should divide that money.
It's going to be an important week, a pivotal week, in fact.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you were, as we'd spoken before, I wanted to ask you about the Swedish attitude to cinema. And we know that Sweden has handled this crisis differently. So can you tell us a little bit about the Swedish approach?
Again, no, I mean, we are a society where we basically do what we are told. We don't question authorities that much. If they say, go right, we go right. And they therefore they don't need to have a lockdown where people stay in and have police chasing them. They just tell us what to do and we do it. And I think I was telling you a joke that if Swedes were told to wear a yellow and a blue sock, that nobody would question that decision. They would maybe have a discussion whether the color could give you cancer, but they would never ask why they should have it. And I think that's how our society works. We are very much, we do as we're told. And that I think has why it has worked very well for them to not shut down society, but rather giving us rules to live by, and we follow those rules. But, and I think that the health aspect of that is that if we would have a complete lockdown and people would not be able to go out and exercise, their mental and physical health would go down, and society would have to pay a price for that later. Yeah. So that's why they decided that this is the way to go. And so far, that has been pretty successful.
As we saw in Spain and Italy. Peter, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me here at Celluloid Junkie, and thank you so much for your interview, which is also available on our site. So it's been wonderful to speak.
Well, thank you for letting me be on your panel today.
And that's all we have for you today. So I'd like to once again thank all of our panelists and contributors, obviously Cliff and Kathy, Stefan and Catherine, and Peter, they're lost by Karen. So we want to remind you, we can keep the conversation going at the community forum. Please email us any ideas, suggestions, improvements for backgrounds to tips@celluloidjunkie.com. And we will be back next week. And remember, cinema will be back too. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.